ignore the fact that it's recording, but I always miss the juiciest stuff when we just start getting on and getting to know each other. And so I'm like, you know what, I just need to start hitting record as soon as I get on with people from now on. Your assistant said something about some sort of a summit or something that you're doing.
Yeah, in the 1st of October. So, you know, my business is where I think that we're so complementary is you're focusing on artists and creativity, which is, right, I think, like the greatest thing we can offer the world. And so what I'm focusing on is art. It's called the Art, Biz, and Soul Summit. So I'll be bringing people in that focus on creating, and then I'll be bringing people in that are focusing on the business side of it and growing the business, and people who've done it really well, and people in the industry, and then soul. So people, which is like the funnest part for me, right, you know, like energy workers and things like that. So
abundance mindset, manifesting,
all of that. And then also there's a woman who I've taught workshops with, Dr. Kellee who really focuses on Qigong and moving energy and bringing that in. And it's just so fun. Yeah.
So could I be so bold to insert myself and volunteer?
Absolutely.
I would love to. I'm really focusing more on business as I move forward. I don't know if you've looked at what I do or what Made Remarkable is really about. It's more about the business side of things. Creativity, yes, it's been an important part of the journey because we're artists and we're creatives, but I know that this is what I'm born to do. And having that revelation, which is why I changed my podcast name to Made Remarkable, which is that we are made remarkable. We aren't, right. We don't have to become anything. We are already, and to just go into our purpose and show up 100% as who we are and own it, which I love about what you do is that you're really into owning the irreverent, powerful, honest art, rebel inside. I love that about you. So
thank you.
I'll never forget seeing that picture of you and your cute butt cheeks showing.
She's
so brave.
Oh yeah, there may have been a little tequila involved with with that photo, but no, but I was totally sober when I decided to post it. You know, and I think there is something about artists, we turn ourselves inside out to create honest art, right? Yeah. And it's the most vulnerable feeling ever to then put it out into the world. And so that was kind of a nod to that.
Yeah, well, it is. It's when we play safe, which is what I've been doing on and off for years now. I play safe because I do what people want. I create what I know will be well received. I know exactly. And so when it comes to that, I'm playing it safe, and I'm also not making my best art.
Right. Oh, girl, I know. You are all of us for sure. You know, absolutely. Because even if, I don't know if this is for you, but you know, even when I get I'm creating a new collection right now, and it just looks a shit show. It just looks awful because I went into it thinking about some of the other art that I've made that I really like. And so I'm trying to, you know, so it's not even about emulating other artists and playing it safe in that way. It's about playing it safe with what we've already done. And oh, I know that sells.
Exactly. It's not even playing it safe with what we see out there in the world, but playing it safe with ourselves and what we're willing to create.
Yeah.
It's so weird, but we change. So how can we create what we created before when we were a different person when we were creating that?
Exactly. It's like, I think back of all my favorite musical artists, right? And how their songs have evolved, their work as music has evolved because they're not the same person. And it has to be the same for us. So yeah, that's what I've been wrestling with personally as an artist this past weekend. It's like, what? I left the studio on Saturday and you're such a hack. Who do you think you are?
It's so weird how, I mean, we're already deep into this conversation in this podcast recording, so we'll just keep going with it. But it's so weird how we can do this for a couple decades and have such great sales, high accolades, publishing, whatever, you name it, the list that anyone would probably be looking at and saying she's made it. And yet we still sit here and we go, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Oh yeah. But I wish there was somebody out there, not me. That's why I'm doing it. I wish there was somebody out there that was doing that same stuff so that I could go, oh, I'm totally fine. So now I'm just I'm just keeping it real with people because I don't think you ever arrive. I think you are always striving for more. And I don't not mean to be an asshole and not be grateful. I am where I'm where I would want it to be 5 years ago, or even, 3 years ago. I'm so grateful for where I am.
For sure.
But I think it's just human nature to want to keep
Well,
evolving and changing and wanting. Yeah.
it's a duality of being grateful for what we have and realizing that so many people don't, but then still wanting to strive for something that we know that we're still capable of.
Yeah. Don't
Right?
you think? Yeah, and don't you think that there is like a unique part of the? I could be totally. I'm willing to be 100%, million% wrong, but I think that there is something unique to artists and to the creative experience. Here's what I'm saying: it's like, I can teach all the business skills in the world, and I know that shit works. Like, hard stop,
Right.
it absolutely works. I'm fully confident in that. But as a creative, every time I show up, I have to show up completely open and letting go of like, I can know skill set,
Right.
but just being open to whatever is new. That's the fumbling. That's the trusting. That's the vulnerability.
Yeah.
It's so important that we allow vulnerability as creatives. And so that's where I get like, I'm a hack. All those paintings that sold for thousands of, the hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of painting.
Right.
They were all flukes.
It was just a fluke. That course that I sold that like with a blink of an eye made tens of thousands of dollars. That was just by accident. I didn't really know.
But do you, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think that is unique to artists?
Because I think it's part of that Gay Hendricks hitting our ceiling, the big leap, that book.
Yes, yeah.
Whereas like when you are going outside of your zone of comfort or the limit in which you believed and you're ready to go to that next level, all of it comes in. And I've been toying with the idea of vulnerability a lot more in the last year because I didn't think I'm not a vulnerable person. I don't have a whole lot of like, whatever, it's not that big of a deal. Nothing makes me feel uncomfortable until I really understood what vulnerability was. And it wasn't really about, telling your sob story so other people will see who you are, which is total BS vulnerability, right?
Right.
But vulnerability is just an awareness in yourself when you're like totally out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have nothing but to face yourself. You're, like the shadow sides of yourself, the light sides of yourself, the part of you that's just like, you can't hide from yourself.
Exactly. Just I love that you said that. It goes beyond allowing ourselves to be seen. It goes to willing to look at ourselves first, look at all of this stuff first. So I love that you mentioned that. Yeah. It's key to our creativity. It's absolutely key to it.
To our creativity and our growth as humans. But honestly, if we were to stay the same, then what's the point? So, I mean, I think that is that getting into that vulnerable state of creativity, of pushing past, of never, I mean, you could even look at it as never satisfied with where you are, but it's not that you're not satisfied, it's that you're not willing to let it be the status quo, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I get bored easily. I get bored with myself. I get bored.
Me too. I get that one. I'm like, how could we shake things up today? Let's break down the business, rebuild it up. My husband's always like, what are you doing? I'm like, I know I'm supposed to focus, but that is not my nature. I'm a creative.
I know. And I'm often like, let's just burn the mother effer down.
Right.
And then I'm lucky, I've got people that are wiser in terms of that around me. Like, okay, I can understand how you feel that way today, but what if we just took a different approach?
Yes. One thing that helps for me is that I now have other people relying on me. In the first decade of my business, mostly it was just, what do I feel like doing? How am I going to reach my goals? I haven't quite made it yet, so I guess I can take a lot of risk, but you do get to a point where you start to see success. And that even if you lost it all, all that learning that you've done, all those principles. And I guess that goes with creativity and life in general. What to do to keep it going. But you also get to the point where people start relying on you. Maybe you have a mortgage to pay. Maybe you have a staff to pay. Maybe, like I've promised to take care of my family, so it's like, okay, I can't just burn it down today. I really can't.
Yeah. The longer you go, the harder it is to be able to burn it. Oh, sorry. The longer you go, the harder it is to be able to burn it all down. And I don't often feel like it, but there's occasionally sometimes or just thought, I just want to do something a little different. I don't do that.
Well, and then that goes into the whole understanding how a business works and systems that you put into place and support that you get so that you can take a break and do something completely different while the other things are still working.
Well, absolutely. And you bring up a really good point because businesses, especially as artists, all businesses go through cycles. And if you can anticipate and understand that there will be a cycle, and that doesn't mean you quit. It just means that, maybe you reconfigure or you regroup or you restructure or something like that. Like to your point earlier about, balancing creativity and, the business side and creativity, what I was doing to balance that 3 years ago it looks a lot different than what I'm doing now. So, several years ago, I was able to say, okay, in the morning, until let's say 2, I'm going to work on the business side of my business. And then from 2 o'clock on, then I'm going to, head into the studio, into my creative space, and then I'm going to create then. So that gave me, at least for my ADD brain, it gave me some structure to work within that felt really safe and comfortable. And I was taking care of both sides. That felt really good. But then as the business grew, 2 o'clock came, and there was still a ton of stuff that needed, calls to be, all kinds of stuff that needed to be done at 2 o'clock. So then I had to restructure it. So again, what works before doesn't work now. So I had to restructure it to where my creativity is now blocked into days. And I try to stay pretty consistent, but during the days of the week, but it's not always the case. Like usually my creative days are Mondays and Fridays, which is great because then I can bleed in Saturday and Sunday if I choose, right? So then I've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday as my creative days. That makes I load up Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That makes a pretty heavy load for business stuff, but that was working for me. But that doesn't always happen. Like today that we're recording this, it's a Monday, right? So this is not considered a creative day, but I will be doing stuff creative later today. So anyway, that's what worked for me. But I also want to say this is important that you may have seen this, Kellee. Did you see that somebody had done a study on all of these different creatives, from writers to Mozart, musicians, to Picasso, like all different forms of creativity. And they did a study on when they were most productive creatively. And I loved seeing it because it was all over the place. So one creative might wake up, and from the time they wake up until, lunchtime, they were just in their studio or they were writing music. And then another person would be, they didn't start creating until 10 p.m. And they were the middle of the night people, right? So what works for one is not going to work for the other, but it is important to find out what works for us. And I am really fortunate. My kids are grown. They're gone. I'm single. I live alone. I can set my schedule however I want it. And that is awesome. And that's not the same, for everyone.
Right. Sometimes we do have to take advantage of the half hour and squeeze it in between whatever else we need to do. But I am in that phase too. And I do find that most of the clients I work with are midlife or later. Most of them don't have young kids. And I know those challenges because I put it off when my kids were young, but there is a certain sense of freedom in this age, and having grown kids and having, freedom to make your own choices, and the freedom of just having your own business, which is still something that, years into it. And I'm just like, wow, I get to do this. Right.
I know.
I have to do it. And it's hard as hell, but also, wow, like, young Kellee would have never guessed that I'd be like, making more than my husband does,
Yeah.
So it's like,
or getting to be an artist as a living, like as a profession.
As a profession, right? Exactly. I mean, it was my dream since I was young, but I just didn't know how to connect the dots. And sometimes it's just trial and error. I feel like everyone now has such greater access to resources than we did when we were like pushing up through, like when we're in the new frontier of social media and whatnot, trying to figure it all out. And now here they are, like, the path is almost paved for them.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't grow up wanting to be an artist. I didn't grow up with I grew up dancing from the time I was 3 years old till I was 11. So that was, I think, my creative outlet, although I didn't think of it in that way, but it for sure was. But so I didn't pick up a paintbrush till I was 35. Wow. And by that point I had a lot of successful entrepreneurial things, and had run companies. And
well, let's talk about that. I would love for you to kind of like tell that little bit of that history for those, that maybe don't know you very well.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
You're living under a rock if you don't know who Jodie is.
No, you're not.
Nonetheless.
I was not that kid that loved creating or painting or whatever. I was that kid until third grade when I had an art teacher. We were in our art class, and we were sitting at one of those long cafeteria tables, and the art teacher put a clump of clay in front of each of us and told us that we were going to be forming mushrooms, and then we were going to get to paint them and then fire them in the kiln, and we would get to see them in a couple of weeks. And so it was, it was very exciting. And So we got our clay and I formed my mushroom, but I had some extra clay left over. And so I rolled them into little balls and put little balls on top of the mushroom. And then I painted the little balls a different color. It was red and white, not surprising, but that's what I did. The mushroom was red, the little balls were white. And then the next week, or maybe it was 2 weeks, when they were all fired, and they were so beautiful and shiny, and she was putting them in front of each of us again. And as she was going down the line, and she said, "Oh, David, I love this." And she was complimenting a kid, and I couldn't wait to get mine. And she put mine in front of me. And all she said was, "Jodie, those little balls were not part of the assignment."
Ugh.
So in that moment, I of course felt shame and decided I wasn't an artist.
Wow.
And now in hindsight, I know that showed creativity that was different, right? I was different, or I was creating something different. So now I'm like, hell yes, I was an artist.
Right? Like that, showing the differentiation, the willingness to go outside of the lines is what actually shows that you're creative and an artist. But dang, if they can't just suffocate it out of us when we're
and and I'm sure you as well have heard so many stories of something similar, which just squelches that creativity. So I decided I'm not an artist, and I never picked up a paintbrush again. And then one day, when I was 35, I'm 55 now, so it's 20 years ago, which is hard to believe because I still feel like I'm a toddler. But at 35, I literally woke up one day and thought, I want to paint. But that was before YouTube, and that was before any access. There was really before the internet really took off, so I think all we had was email. I don't even know if there was internet.
I mean, I think YouTube was around 20 years ago, but it just wasn't populated with a whole lot of anything. I think the best we had was forums.
I definitely, there was probably YouTube, but I didn't know what it was.
Right. It took us a while to jump on board.
Yeah, it was not an early adopter anyway. So I just started painting, and I did the best I could. And I ended up having a home tour because my then husband and I had a cute little bungalow that we had remodeled, and it was in this small town in Texas. And it was, so the historical society said, "Hey, will you put your house on the tour of homes?" So we did. And I was cleaning up all of the, crap because of the tour. And I decided to hang a few of the paintings they had done on the wall. And as the women came through, some men came through as well. A lot of the questions were, who did this? And I was like, get the hell out of here. Are you kidding me? And so one of the women asked to buy a piece. And so I just told, I think it was a 36 by 48. It was a bigger piece. And she said, "Well, how much is it?" And I had no clue, but I knew I couldn't, was my belief. I knew I couldn't get more than 1,000, right? Because that would be crazy.
Crazy.
Crazy. So I said 900, and she said, "Sold." Just like that.
And you're like, I meant.
Yeah. And then another woman owned a store in town, and she asked if she could start selling my art there. So I became an accidental professional artist. But because before that, I had so many businesses and run businesses and had marketing training and all of this, I just decided I was going to apply the business skills that I knew to my art business. And because I didn't have an art background, or I had never said to a parent or anyone else for that matter that I wanted to be an artist, I wasn't indoctrinated into you better get a real job. That's not a real job. Starving artist, have a plan B. I wasn't indoctrinated to any of that. So I just thought, I'll just apply these business skills to my art business. That's what I did. And it took off.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
Tell me what some of those business experiences you had that you apply right now to your current, like obviously for the last 2 decades as being an artist, but what were some of those business experiences that led you to understand the one thing that most artists are not very good at, which is a business acumen or knowledge of marketing and branding?
Right. So one of the things that I did was my family had not 5-star, but it had a very high-end restaurant in Houston. So that did 2 things. Number one, I ran the restaurant, and I understood the value that every single person that walks in the door is valuable. Like you can't afford to not have a quality product and serve them in the best possible way. Because if they leave, they're not going to tell one person, they're going to tell 10. So already I was like, have the best possible product and serve people well. So that's why, I do fine art, because I'm like, I'm going to have the best possible product, and I'm not going to be shy about asking for what it's worth. So a lot of times, and I work with artists all the time who really feel very scared about first of all, knowing how to charge for art. And so that's one thing, that we teach is how to do that. But the other thing is owning their own value and owning the value of their work. So that early experience of have the finest product and you can charge a premium for it if you also give the best service possible.
Right.
So that was one thing. And then later.
So wait, I have to interrupt you. Have you watched The Bear?
I have watched it. But I haven't got to the end of it, but I'm watching it right now.
But very much in season 2, there's an episode where it really dives deep into that the customer experience, to love on them and to be so proud of what you do and how you care for them. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, that's how we have to run our businesses. Yes. So you're saying that in real life, not just in the TV shows. This is really how you do it in a restaurant. And this is what we need to apply to the business model that we have now.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And the second thing I was going to say is along those same lines. So later, when I call him starter husband Todd. I adore this man. He was my first husband. He's the father of my children. He's a great guy. We're great friends. But anyway, starter husband Todd and I started a wine bar in the early 90s. This was before, now their wine bars are a dime a dozen, but there weren't wine bars back then. Okay. So this was kind of a new concept. We started this wine bar. And in order to get our name out there, there's so many things that we had to do. There was no social media. If we were, we could do mailers, we could do, all of these things to reach out and to get people to come in the door. So there was that. Then the other thing is every time somebody walked in the door, again, just like the restaurant before, every time somebody walked in the door, that was a customer experience. So then fast forward to years later when Instagram is coming up, right? And it's a thing. And I'm using it to post. I wasn't connecting the dots.
It took me a while to connect the dots.
Yeah. So I was posting photos of my vacation and my dog and things like that. And then one day I woke up and I'm like, holy shit, this is a platform that had, I think it's more than this now, but at the time, 1 billion users a month, and it's free. Jodie, what the hell are you doing? Use this platform. But because of my training, I never looked at it as I'm going to get followers. I'm going to get followers. I'm going to get followers. It was never about the number of followers. It was always about that person that walks in the door. You serve that customer to your highest ability. You serve, and you connect, because without the connection, they're not going to stay around long. And without the service, they're not going to stay around long. And you have a quality product, all of those things. So that was just some of it. So now I teach people within my business courses about social media. And I'm sure, like you, I get so much resistance from artists because, and I used to say this too, by the way, so I get it, but they're like, I paint. I want to be alone. I don't want to show my art. I want to just paint. They want the art to speak for itself. They, all of this. So they're very reluctant and hesitant to use social media, or I don't know how. And I think you and I have the same demographic of women. We're usually late 40s into their 70s, and it's not innate. It feels awkward to them. But reframing. So when they say, how do I do this? I say, you treat it like one customer at a time. And if they're like, well, nobody's commenting, nobody's engaging, it's like, then you need to change the way you're talking to people. Because let's quit thinking of it as an algorithm and start thinking of it as a connection.
You got it. And isn't that what everyone complains about? But the algorithm. And I have heard this and I feel like it's harsh, but I also know it's the truth. It's not the algorithm, it's you. Mm-hmm. I mean, the truth of the matter is that you have to show up 100%. You have to create engage-worthy content, and you have to engage.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and prior to the advent of social media, like you have mailers, you have radio ads, you have billboards, you have TV ads. You could go door to door and not, but you didn't have this free resource. And now we do. Yeah. So if we show up to serve the people who are already there, then it doesn't matter what number we're getting as far as following goes, right?
Right.
Because 100 really engaged people is way better than 100,000 people who don't give a damn about what
Absolutely. Yeah. And oftentimes, if you have a big platform, let's say you have a platform of, 1 million people are less likely to engage and comment because they think that, it's getting lost in, in the numbers. And so oftentimes with a smaller community, you're able to get more traction from a business perspective and people to really engage in what you're up to, because it's not diluted.
It's not diluted, but it's up to you to engage. And so I notice that quite often. It's like, no one's engaging with me. And I'm like, but are you engaging with them? Mm-hmm. Are you responding to their comments? Are you reaching out and making comments on other people's posts that have something in common with you? And even now we've got threads. Thank you for one more thing for us to do, Zach. I was supposed to be taking a break and I'm not, but I had someone ask me, she's like, well, I'm not getting any engagement and I'm finding it really hard to connect here on Threads. Like everyone else says it's so easy. She's like, can you take a look really quick at what's going on? And I'm like, sure, I'll take a look. And she was posting the same stuff she was posting on Instagram, highly curated photos with really me-centric types of posts. When you're talking all about yourself, nobody has an interest in engaging. She's like, but I'm asking questions. I'm like, you're not asking questions about them. You're asking them questions about yourself. So spend some time to actually listen to what your customer, whoever that customer is, listen to what their needs are and help engage with what their needs are.
Absolutely.
That changes everything about whether people want, because then they feel heard and seen, right?
100%. Yeah. I always say it's about you, but it's not for you.
Right. Yeah.
So you can share your experiences, but it's not for you, it's for them. So how can you relate it back to them?
Exactly.
How can you use it as a form of service?
Right. You can tell your journey, your story, but you've got to do it so that they see themselves in it and they become the hero of that story and they get the transformation, whether it's something for teaching business or, in the case of people who are selling art or selling in art courses, how did they see themselves in the story or what you shared? And what is their transformation from, even if it's just a few sentences, how do they walk away feeling different? Right.
Absolutely.
And that's it. Each person is a customer that you have to cherish. And that's it with the wine bar, with social media. I mean, we all know if everyone on our social media list, any one of those posts that we have, like, we're like, I only got 146 likes on this one post. Okay, well, what happens if 146 people showed up for dinner? You'd be overwhelmed. Like, so yes, I get it. Like, we're still looking at the reach and it's kind of unfortunate, but it's not a like, it's not a heart, it's a human.
Yeah. And it is hard to get to have to look at ourselves. Just like when we first started talking, it's hard to look at ourselves and say, okay, what is it about me? What is it that I can do differently? And how maybe I need to show up differently. And we're so resistant to change generally, and it takes a little while. But I have seen that artists that are willing to, not just on social media, but even, on their email list or on a podcast or when an artist really starts showing up in their fullness of who they are, the collectors are drawn to them and to their work in a different way. And it makes a meaningful difference financially to their bottom line.
Yeah. Well, I notice it, like you said, even on podcasts, which is why I hit record before we were actually officially recording, because I'm noticing that I'm getting better conversations when I do that. I can't tell you how many times I turned on the podcast and all of a sudden it was like, I'm in business mode now and I have to act accordingly. And I'm like, no, we're all done with that. We all want you to just show up. And like you said, give generously, serve, be human for a change. Like, I don't know. It is easier said than done because we get into routines and it's easy to just keep doing what we think everybody else is doing. And it goes back to vulnerability. It feels comfortable to post what we really want to post, to talk about what we really want to talk about. That's one of the reasons I took a break from social media is I was personally becoming a robot again. Here's this product, here's this event, here's this thing we're doing, here's how what, but after a while, I'm like, this is not serving them or me. It's taking all the joy out of it. So like right now through the summer, I'm just taking a break, supposedly taking a break from social media. I probably just need to delete it completely off my phone, but I'm not
posting. That's so smart.
Well, it's a chance to reset and figure out what I really want. And what I really want is deeper connection. Just like you're saying, I want to be able to have enough energy. So part of it for me is energy level, the space that I'm in to hold for each person who comes through the door. Right. And I say door, but I mean like that shows up in social media, shows up in my inbox, sends me an email, works with me. I want to be able to hold energy and space and serve them better. So I really have to rethink how I'm doing things.
Right. Right. I had to do that recently because I was doing so much at the end of 2022. 2022 was just one of those years that things just exploded. I
saw you had some really exciting things happen.
Oh, so great. So many great things from, Fortune, Entrepreneur, the CBS, NBC, like all kinds of great press and great opportunities came through. But at the end of December of 2022, I was completely burnt out. Not surprising because I said yes to everything. Because that whole hustle mentality, be grateful for what you got to just keep going and going and going until it burned, I got burned out. And so then as I was thinking, okay, well, what do I want? What is going to make this fun again? That was the question. Would this be fun? If it's not fun, I'm not coming. That was the bar. It's like, is this going to be fun?
I mean, every yes you've heard this quote, every yes you say is a no to something else. Right? So you've got to make those yeses count, which I'm really glad that you chose coming on the podcast as one of
well, thank you. But thanks. Well, it looked like it would be a lot of fun and I wasn't wrong.
Yeah, thank you. No, I mean, podcasters understand podcasters. We throw in podcasting, I think, partly just so that we can get on that deeper level. It is a chance to have a better conversation.
I agree, but not every podcaster wants to have those conversations.
I know, but I do. And if you don't want to show up on my podcast and have a real conversation, then it's going to be a real short podcast episode.
Yeah.
That's just me though. But so I want to ask you a little bit about those PR opportunities. Was it one of those things where you were an overnight sensation and it just miraculously happened after 20 years of hard work, or did you actually apply?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a good question. Different things happen. Like for instance, let's just start with, the beginning of the year was NBC. And it was local. It wasn't national. So I want to be really clear about that. But, I live in Austin. It's a big city, right?
It's a big art city too.
Yeah.
Texas in general is a big art state.
Yeah. Because I had been talking, and I still talk about it, but at the time I had really been talking about it, especially with COVID, about how art is so healing for us, emotionally, well, in all kinds of ways. What we went to NBC and pitched to them was how, we're starting off the year, how can people really kick it off in a good frame of mind and use art as a form of healing, art journaling, et cetera. So when it comes to PR and media in general, you always need to think, how can I serve their audience? I guess it's like social media, right? It's like, it is not about me. It is how I can serve their audience.
Right.
So that's how those things started. And then Fortune magazine this was back when the whole NFT craze was happening. And I was looking at NFTs and I was looking at the value of what that could bring to an artist. Like, how was that affecting the artist? And when I saw that with NFTs, anytime the NFT is sold, then the artist gets that money. And then anytime it's resold, the artist gets up to 10% in perpetuity.
I know.
So that was what made me interested in it. And so then we pitched that to Fortune and said, I've got something to say about this as a woman and as an artist, because they were all coming at it from the collector standpoint.
Yeah.
And so, I had something to say about it from an artist standpoint. So anytime we are looking at media of any sort, print, TV, magazine, whatever it might be, we always look at it as, what value can I add to their audience?
Right. And maybe a twist on a point of view that they hadn't considered.
Exactly.
I mean, you put the two together. The value was, this is a real hot topic, so we want to be able to talk about it and know that's what our audience wants. And then here you come in and you're like, I have a take on this hot topic from a totally different point of view.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's
how that worked.
Though. You guys did the pitching. You and your team did the pitching, and
exactly.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to pitch mine, but I have a program where I do work with a coaching program, and one of the things that
that I want you to pitch it, right? That's the point. I love supporting other artists and the things they do, because I might not be the right person for everyone. So you're here.
It's very kind. So I have a program we call Studio Elite, and it's a very small group. I never take more than 8 artists. We're about to start tomorrow with my next cohort. It's a 6-month program, and there's 5 or 6 artists in there. Anyway, what we do is it's 6 months, but one of the things we do is we have a private retreat here in Austin, and my team comes, and my PR person who is doing this pitching, and my social media person who is running my social media. I'm still writing my captions, but she's running the social media.
Right.
My digital marketing specialist who is doing all the emailing and putting together the courses, like, they all come and they work directly with the artists, so that my PR person can say, okay, Kellee, I've looked at your stuff. Here are some different angles that you can go about doing for getting into different media situations. And here's the different things that you can consider. So I just think it's really valuable to be able to teach that to artists.
Absolutely. Because again, we can go back to the fact that you're in an unusual situation of having had a history with business and understanding these things better. I might have a bit of an unusual background too, in the fact that my parents were both entrepreneurs. So, and my father was an artist, but he's run his own business his whole life. I think I might remember him having worked for someone else once in the entire time that I've, been alive.
Yeah.
So
Some of us us are just not suited for
but
corporate life.
most creatives don't really have a natural born inkling towards how to do business, how to do marketing, how to do PR. And so when they find the right resources, they find a mentor that they can trust, that has paved the way, that has shown that they've gotten results. It just shortens that time of trying to figure it all out instead of 20 years, right?
Yeah.
It can take you 6 months to a
Yeah.
year, to really totally radically shift what you're doing. So things that I still don't know that much about, like I have a creative brain to come up with new ideas, but I don't know much about PR. Could I come up with some original ideas that I could pitch? Yes, but I wouldn't even know who to go to or how to pitch them. So it's awesome when you have a program that kind of builds in those, like that training that people really need that they wouldn't have sought out on their own.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one tip I can give you and to all of your listeners is a tip that my PR person told me. And that is start in your own backyard. And she said, and then you want to own your backyard. And the reason for this, because what we all want national recognition, right? We all, or global recognition,
right.
Why stop at national? But the thing is that any sort of national publication, media of any sort, they will always, Google or research you. And if you haven't had any press just within your own city, they are less likely to take it to a larger scale. So it's really important for artists to get PR, even if you think it's nothing, even if it's if you live in a town of 5,000 people and it's just in your local newspaper,
right.
Or you're in a free magazine for your community. All of it matters. So start in your own backyard, and from there, things start to pick up.
That's a really excellent advice. In fact, that just reminds me of another entrepreneur I've followed for ages. She's in the floral wedding industry, and that's where she started with our own Baltimore News hosting in the morning, doing some floral advice, and it's like just blown up from there. So yeah, start local for sure. I mean, that's really how we start selling our work anyway.
Exactly.
Start local. And that's how I started too, is I joined small organizations in my area because that gave me connections to all the other artists who were doing things that had the inside scoop. Oh, I know this person who did this. I know this art show that's coming up here, a publication, or I'm connected with, whatever it is like once you start networking, and this is good old fashioned how you build a business.
Absolutely.
We've kind of forgotten it. Networking has been the best resource for 100 years. And now here we are, like, we rely so much on just social media. And the truth of the matter is networking and collaborations and connecting with other like-minded people, like-minded artists, like-minded businesses makes just like all the difference in the world. I mean, that's how I really got myself started in my profession. I walked right into a gallery and said, let me curate your next show. And she said, okay. And now I realize, because it's hard as hell. And I took a big chunk off her shoulders. But then that gave me the next 4 years of experience of curating shows,
Yeah. Yeah. It's so scary for us also, because we're, by and large, visual artists tend to be introverts. And it's just really, as we were talking about earlier, talking about going outside of your comfort zone, right? That is such a stretch. But as we know, everything awesome happens outside of our comfort zone. So just taking that leap. I promise you won't die. That's what we feel like is going to happen. I'm going to die if this doesn't go well. You won't die.
The system just a little bit.
Exactly.
The other end of it, it'll be okay. And then that begs the question of how much do you want to stay in your comfort zone versus how much do you really want it, right?
Yeah.
So when you have big dreams and visions, and you can't sit in your room all alone and manifest it, you actually have to embody it and show up as it.
100%. 100%. Yes,
but take the risk.
Yeah, but to your point, which is such a good one, is how much do you want to succeed, and how much do you want to stay in your comfort zone? That is all about cognitive dissonance. And if an artist does, and I'm sure your listeners know about cognitive dissonance, but it's basically holding two things at once. Mm-hmm. It's, I really want this one thing, but I'm really worried that if I have it, this is going to happen, something bad, right? So let's say I really want to have a successful art business, but I'm afraid that I'll have to sacrifice being a great wife or mother. Or I really want to have this, successful art business, but I'm afraid I'll have to be visible, and I'm anxious about that, right? And so when you have this cognitive dissonance that you're not acknowledging and you're not addressing, that cognitive dissonance is like having one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake, and nothing is going to go anywhere.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And what we convince ourselves is I'm not good enough, or I don't know enough yet, let me learn some more, or it's not right, it's not perfect yet. We give ourselves a whole lot of other things. It's really just excuses to keep us from taking the next step. Right?
Exactly.
So sometimes I've learned that the best way to get to make the next step forward, but also to get clarity, is to just take action.
100%.
Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you can make the action, you can take the action, you can totally fall flat on your face, but you're going to learn more from that than having never done it at all.
And you're going to probably learn more from it than if you were wildly successful right out of the gate.
I think so. I mean, the amount of times that I failed trying to get to the point of being able to sell my artwork. And like, I have a little bit of a different story. I may come from artists. I may come from an art background. I wanted to be an artist since I was a child. I am very fortunate to have never really had any teacher or authority figure say, you didn't do it right. But at the same time, I watched the struggle, and I had seen a lot of artists around me succeed, but I also knew how hard it was. And then I just chose not to go down that path, but I had always wanted it. And so even though I had seen success, I mean, I grew up, this is so weird, I know, but I grew up in a neighborhood where everyone was an artist, and all these fathers and mothers supported their family, but everyone had, and this is in the 80s, multi-$100,000 homes in the 80s on 5 acres.
That's amazing.
And had 8 kids or whatever. Well, you know, like, so all of these families were supported by art. So you would think that my natural inclination is there's no such thing as a starving artist. And yet I hit my own blocks. And then when I came into, I really waited until probably the first time I started selling artwork was 2012. And it never took off. Like, I made a little progress, but it never, like, I kept hitting the wall, and I'd keep getting up over and over again. So like, I obviously, I'm willing to be battered and bruised for the cause, because I just kept going.
Well, I was gonna say, you knew that you had visual representations that this does work. It really does work. And all the time, people are like, artists say, I want what you've got. I want, the success that you had. And I always say, there is nothing I have in me that you don't have in you.
Right.
I just refuse to quit.
That's the secret. If everyone's listening and wants to know the secret to success, the secret is you just don't quit. Everything else, we are just figuring it out as well. But I would say that's the number one thing. You just don't quit.
Exactly.
If I quit when it got hard, I wouldn't be here right now.
Absolutely. You don't quit, and then you just adjust, right? It's like, well, that didn't go well. What could I have done differently?
It's all just data. How do we respond to that?
Exactly. It's like, so I teach artists how to release a collection, right? There, I have all this different strategy that I teach. If they're now, I'll sell paintings one-off, throughout the year, but then once a year I have a collection and a release. And so I teach artists how to release a collection. And the ones that do it and use the tools that I'm teaching them, they have like wild success, like sell out. Maybe it's their first collection ever, even if they're new or whether they've been painting a really long time, they do incredible. They sell out of the collection. But the ones that just do part of it, meaning they post on social media, right? Because that's what we all think as artists. Well, I'll just post on social media and I'll sell my art and I'll have a wildly successful career. It doesn't work like that.
No, there's so many other things you've got to do.
So many things. Anyway, so for those artists that don't do that, they did not have a great, release of their collection. But guess what? That's okay. Because next time they're like, oh, all right, noted.
You probably do what I'm
going to do this. I'm going to do this other stuff next time. So you don't quit. You don't decide at that point, I'm a terrible artist, because that's what happens is we make it mean something about our art, right? I'm like I was saying earlier, I'm a hack. My work is terrible. That's what we make it mean. That's not the case. Not usually the case. I mean, you do have to have a great product, but it's usually just the execution. You just got to change the execution.
Yeah. Well, and so if you were like, I might as well allow you to give a few tips about, like, you've given a lot of advice, but what are some of those things that you say when you're releasing a collection? If you were to say like 3 or 4 things that are absolute must do besides having quality work. We know for sure you probably want to have been creating long enough that you have a clear vision and voice and you can create the collection. So that part's done. We know you can do that. You figured out how to photograph it, blah, blah, blah. But what do we do for the marketing leading up to that? What would be a few really important things?
Such a good question. And I like to look at other industries and look at best practices of other industries. What are they doing, right? Because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can just look at what's successful out there in other industries. Yeah. And so 2 of my favorite things in the world are Ted Lasso and
I love it.
And J-Lo's skin. I mean, what the hell? We're the same age. She looks amazing. Right?
You look amazing though. Wait, you look amazing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Anyway, okay, so best practices. So I look at all we have to do is we look at, so Ted Lasso, right? First season came out, so good, right? We have a great product. So no one knew when season 2 was coming out until we did. And then it was going to be released. The second season was going to come out at the end of July. And guess when we learned about that? The 1st of June. Okay. And when JLo was going to release her skincare line, she was releasing her skincare line on January 1st. Guess when we started hearing about her new skincare line? November 1st. So as artists, what we generally do is, let's say, the 1st of December, we start thinking, I think I should create something for Christmas.
Oh yeah.
It's like, okay, that doesn't give you much of a runway to start letting people know that this is coming, right? So that's what both Ted Lasso and JLo did, is they let people know it was coming early. They started teasing it and promoting it ahead of time.
Right.
So that's the exact same thing I suggest artists do. So pick a date, right? So JLo had January 1st. She picked it for a reason. She didn't want it lost in the noise of Christmas, although you can release a collection in, Christmas. But I'm just saying she picked a date and she stuck with it. Okay. So you start with the date, pick a date that you want to release the collection. Now work backwards from that date. Okay. And just know that 2 months, 8 weeks, you could even say 6 weeks. You don't even have to do, because come on, I'm not JLo. I don't have to do a whole 8 weeks. So I'm much more Ted Lasso than JLo. Anyway, so you pick a date, say 6 weeks in advance, and you're like, that's the date. I'm going to start letting people know that I have a collection coming out. And then within the next 6 weeks, you start giving people a taste of what this collection is, what it's about, what is inspiring you, and you create FOMO. You create a FOMO around, and you create a buzz around this. And this goes back to social media. Yes, it's about me. It's about this collection, but it's not for me, right? It is, how is this going to connect to your collector? And you make sure you talk about that in your messaging, so you're getting people excited about it. And then as it gets closer, you're going to want to make sure that you are letting your email list know that this is company is coming, because the people that are on your email list, they are your warmest audience. It's going to be these are the people that already think the sun shines out of your ass, or they would not, or they would have unsubscribed, right? They already love what you're doing. We're not a big box store. We're not, that's not who we are. They're not just staying on for that, right? They have to love what we're doing, or they're going to unsubscribe. So you let them know ahead of time through your emails. You let them know 3 weeks in advance. Hey, you guys put this on your calendar, but mark it on there. And then a couple of weeks before that, you tell them again, you're in it. And then you release it to the people that have served you, like that are in your community, that have supported you the most. And you release your collection to your email list first. That also serves, because when you are talking about it on social media, because you're going to be talking about it on social media a lot also, right? You drive people to your email list. So now you're building your email list at the same time, and you give them the benefit of being the first to view the collection. It's like a gift. Look, you guys have decided to support me, and just by getting on my email list, so I'm going to give you first access to that collection. So all the while, you're talking about it on social media for sure, but you're also honoring those people on your email list, and you're letting them know. And then you set it all up from an e-commerce standpoint to where those people do get first access to your collection, and you have a cutoff date, right? So you want to give them some incentive to purchase before you release it to all of your social media, right? So those are my biggest tips in a nutshell of if you're going to release a collection. But what do we do? Like, I'm working on I'm working on my holiday collection right now, right?
So that goes to the other point is you start promoting here, but that means months in advance.
Absolutely.
You're figuring it all out and working on it. And this is actually the exact, so I teach more those who are creating courses, coaching programs, community projects, collaborations, and other kinds of forms of building their creative business, other than usually how to sell art, but it's the same principle. We let them know in an excitement that this thing is coming. And we say, get on the email list, because those on the email list get first dibs, right?
Yeah.
They get a priority price. They get a first chance before everything sells out. Whatever it is though, and a launch of whatever it is, whether it's your artwork or a course or whatever you're going to do, a retreat you're going to do, that's going to be something that builds your list. So if someone misses out this time, or they look at it and they're like, I don't have the finances, but I'm now on the list, next time around, guess what? If you've been nurturing them the whole time, they're there and ready and waiting. So
exactly. And it comes down to what we talked about at the very beginning. It is serving every single person that comes through your door. If somebody got on your email list, they have walked in your door. Serve them.
They had to make a choice.
Because nobody wants another
in
email.
The world aren't enough to keep them there,
Yeah, exactly. But nobody wants another email. So if they made the decision to get on your email list, they're really interested in what you're doing. Yeah, exactly.
Just like you. Exactly. I love that. I think this is really valuable. I am so glad you came on. I am going to ask you two questions. One, what do you have coming up in the near future that we can all be excited for? How can people connect with you?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So something I have coming up, the October 3rd and 4th is our first annual Art, Biz, and Soul Summit, which is a 2-day online summit. I'm so excited about this. I know we visited briefly about it. I'm so excited about this because as artists, we do have to consider business. We also we have to consider our creativity, making our strongest art, and we have to consider like our mindset stuff. And I love the woo part of it. Love it. The energy work, the mindset work, all of the woo stuff. So that's coming up October 3rd and 4th. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So they'll be able to connect with you I'll have all the links in the show notes. So at Jodie_King_, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So my Instagram is Jodie, Jodie _King_, but, or you can just find me on my website, jodieking.com, JODIEKING.com.
And I know you have a couple of really good on-demand programs. One is the Color Course for Rebels, which, I'm a color lover. Like that's my language when it comes to art. And then the Art Biz course for Rebels as well. So you can go at your own pace before you might be ready to jump into a deeper coaching program, right?
Exactly. Thanks for mentioning that. I'm always so bad about pitching my own stuff.
Okay. But those who are listening to you, who are probably connecting with you really deeply right now, are going to be like, okay, I'm ready for that next step. And Jodie's my person. So we'll make sure all those links are there. And for the summit, that's really exciting. So the last question I have is, what is your big audacious dream?
Oh, I can't tell you because I'm looking for a patent. I'm trying to get a patent on it right now. But I would say beyond that, my big audacious dream is to impact artists globally, to put this whole starving artist BS aside, because I believe to my core that artists are some of the most important people in the world right now, have always been, because we are the feelers of the world. We are the sensitive ones. And, Anita Moorjani wrote a book called Sensitive is the New Strong. And I really believe that we don't need any more bravado and stuff. We need to start really looking at ourselves in sensitivity. That's who artists are. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't get paid to do what we love. So I'm on a mission globally to elevate artists, not only in how the world sees us, but how we see ourselves, so that we can have a life and a career doing what we love.
There you go. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's such a pleasure to talk to you.